Live?
No, we are now.
Are we live? We're live?
See, it says live in the red.
Hi, good morning, everyone.
Hey, everybody. So I'm really excited. Patrick and I started a podcast last week. It's called Stop Dieting and Live Your Life. And we're going to be drinking coffee together every Saturday morning, which we do anyway.
I look shorter than you.
Scoot over here. We're going to be doing a podcast every Saturday morning. And just for the hay of it, I decided to live stream it today. So I have my computer next to me. If you are here and want to ask questions during the live streaming, please feel free to chat with us. And that way we can, hey Fat, that way we can,
Oh boy.
we can go ahead and answer questions. So we're going to get started. So what do you have in your coffee?
I have coffee.
Yeah, but it's a different color than mine. We have the same.
Oh, I have almond milk and stevia.
Oh. He was lovely enough to run to the. He was lovely enough to run to Whole Foods today and get us some coffee because we were totally out. And I mean, you can't do a podcast.
I actually drove. I didn't run.
You could have.
Yeah.
Anyway, I got this awesome coffee mug last night. I'm just waiting for people to get on. Eat, drink, and be merry. I went to TJ Maxx. Shout out to my friend Stephanie. She showed me the wonders that are in TJ Maxx, and it was very tempting. You do look shorter. You
I know, it's awesome.
Good
That
posture.
is awesome.
Good posture. Stop it. All right. If anybody's listening on the podcast, this part's boring. So we're going to get to the good stuff. So today we're going to talk about nutrition, but what I've hashtagged it is Youtrition because there's no, that's much better.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually taller, so maybe I should scoot.
Her feet are off the ground, though.
Anyway, guys, if you're on, like the video, comment, ask questions as we discuss. So anyways, I like to call it hashtag Youtrition. I just came up with that and I thought it was kind of fun. But the reason I like it is because it's very true. There's no specific diet that's exactly right for every single person. Everybody's genetics are different. Everybody's life history is different. Your medical history is different. Your mental, emotional, physical stressors, your lifestyle, where you live, your ancestry, where you guys come from is all very different. So it's very important to find out what nutrition works for your body, for the goals that you have, for the genes, etc. So I want to talk a little bit about your progression with nutrition and kind of our progression. We'll keep that short because we kind of talked about that in the last podcast. And then I wanted to discuss, how do you find your perfect nutrition? So what's your history then? What's your progression? Because the one thing I did want to say, too, is that nobody can ever go from 0 to 100%. Mm-hmm. It's literally not possible. It doesn't matter how crunchy you are, how... we're pretty cold turkey. Let's just do what's good for us, whether it tastes good or not. Oh, my mom. All right.
You hung up on your mom.
I hung up on my mom. Okay.
No Christmas
Obviously,
presents.
she's not on Facebook right now, or
Yeah.
she'd know we're going live. Okay.
No presents for you.
No Christmas. Well, this is going to be airing in January, but no, I don't know, Valentine's Day present. Okay, so talk about your history quickly.
I was born in Miami. Not that history.
Your Youtrition.
Okay, so always a pretty healthy kid. Ran a lot, active, that sort of thing. But didn't really watch what I ate. In the 20s, metabolism would kind of take care of stuff like that. That was starting at when I was 20. You be quiet, Renee. But really didn't kind of come to fruition until I injured myself. I used to run all the time, then I injured myself, had bad knees, that sort of thing, just from running too much. So started looking into more of what I could do to be more fit. Always kind of said, hey, I never had six-pack abs. I didn't like that. What's going on?
Nothing.
Do you want me to talk?
That's right.
Okay.
I'm trying to see comments, so we need to respond.
Oh, okay.
Continue, please.
So anyway, I actually I started working out with this guy, Gavin, in New Jersey.
Shout out to Gavin. What's his last name? McKay.
McKay.
He's pretty
Unite
awesome.
Fitness, and he had a nutrition program and things like that. And his big thing was to eat in Technicolor was the term that he used.
Mm-hmm. So
and,
vegetables and fruits.
Right.
Lots of color.
Right.
On your plate.
Yeah.
If it's brown.
Yeah,
Don't
exactly. So I started to do that.
This
a lot
is
of
your
salads.
house when we met.
Yeah, brown.
Brown, 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 brown.
Helicopter.
Dark brown,
paintings
light
on
brown,
the wall, and ESPN
brown, brown,
on the
brown.
TV.
Anyway,
I
don't eat your food the way you decorated your house is the moral of the story.
I'm not quite sure I like the way this is going.
All right, move on.
Anyway, so ate in Technicolor, started doing smoothies in the morning. Still kind of, had my unhealthy stages. Keegan and I would eat a lot of goldfish, not real goldfish, but the snack cracker. He's smiling. And so anyway, that's how it started. And then I noticed I actually started to feel better. And then you and I got together. It was kind of an incremental thing for me.
Well, that's the important part. So why was it incremental?
Because I learned more the more I did it. And I think that was a big thing. As I started to do green smoothies in the morning, actually felt pretty good. Then said, well, what can I eat at lunch? And lunch has turned from a sandwich at Subway to a salad at Subway because I felt better. And then looking...
Patrick likes goldfish. That's what he just said.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. We all like goldfish. And then...
but did the goldfish like you?
Right now they're being eaten.
It's a real question.
So just incremental steps, learning more about, yogurt. They say yogurt's good, but there's 400 manufacturers of yogurt, and some of the yogurt's pretty crappy, so you just...
So it's a learning process, basically. So it's not like you can't wake up one day and say, I'm going to be healthy, and then the next day you have all the information. It's a process of what? Like, how'd you kind of figure out? Was it experimenting with your body? Was it reading books? What was it?
With me, it was
me.
Well, it was obviously you, because I mean, you obviously.
He started me on the health journey, and then I kind of ran with it.
Right. So anyway, so it was an incremental thing. Reading more about what's healthy, what's not, what things are good for you, what's not, and it just you start to replace some things, and if you're putting 2 teaspoons of sugar in your coffee in the morning. Everybody knows that a whole bunch of processed sugar is not bad. Is there a substitute? Because I like
good,
sweet.
You mean. Processed sugar is not bad, is what you just said.
Right.
We're on a health
that
podcast.
Too.
Let's make sure that's clear. White sugar is bad. Drink your coffee.
Okay. And then so replacing the stevia. So just little things like that.
Yeah.
That's
so
all.
a couple questions. You were quote unquote healthy before, right? Mm-hmm. Like when you were running marathons, you would have considered yourself healthy. At that point in time, you would have thought that you were healthy.
Yeah, I was.
Looking back,
right?
Do you think that you were healthy at that time?
Well, I think I was fit from a cardiovascular standpoint. Could have done more muscle fitness, that sort of thing. Strength training. But I kind of ate what I want. It was that classic thing. Well, I run 20 miles a day, so I can eat as many calories. I can eat whatever I want. And
that's the other perspective too is calorie counting. So especially if you're running a lot or you're burning a ton of calories, people are like, well, I can eat however many calories I want because I'm going to burn them off, so it doesn't matter the type of it's like what's that show? The guy that never showed his face.
Home Improvement?
Yeah.
I could do the whole podcast like that.
You'll never see his face again. Anyways, what were we talking about?
Home Improvement?
No. We were talking about the food thing, learning about the food. Anyway, that totally went right out of my head. Oh. Very distracting.
You lost about 50 followers on that one.
Oh, gosh. Okay, so anyways, listening to your body is super important. Oh, we were talking about you being healthy and the perspective.
Wilson.
How it's... Wilson, thank you. Wilson from Home Improvement. Yes.
Renee said we were talking about calories.
Calories. Oh, yes, thank you. Thank you for getting us back on track. Okay, so... So people will think, okay, well, I'm going to run 25 miles, which I don't even know what the calorie equivalent is. Like, it's insane, right? So obviously, people that run long runs like that, they're going to up their calories naturally. It doesn't matter, how healthy or unhealthy you are. You're burning extra calories. But the problem comes in where they think, well, I can eat 3,000 calories today because I burned them all off, and it doesn't really matter what type of calories they are, but it really does, because every bite of food influences your cells and your genetic expression. So it's very important that you're choosing things that are fueling your organs, fueling your energy, fueling your brain, versus foods that are literally doing the opposite. They're breaking it down. Our bodies are so intelligent and so self-saving that it's kind of, if you think about like Legos, okay? So our body is Legos. It's a good analogy.
Awesome.
So we have these building blocks, right? The cells are like the building blocks, and they're Lego blocks. They're sturdy, right? Ish. I mean, maybe I should have said concrete blocks, but he likes the Lego analogy. So we're going to say they're Lego.
Not Star Wars Legos.
We have name brand building blocks in our body is what I'm trying to say. Name brand, okay? So it's sturdy, and our body builds all, our brain and our heart and our energy levels and our everything that kind of makes us function as vital human beings. So that's what happens when we eat good nutrition. But when we eat poor nutrition, and when we're feeding our bodies with, Skittles and Ho-Hos and processed foods and lots of sugar and sodas and energy drinks and that kind of thing, we're taking the Legos away, and we're throwing in like foam blocks. Okay, so our body still takes them and does what it can to build the wall and build the systems in our body, but it's not as firm, it's not as stable, and eventually there's a break, and that's where all the chronic disease and inflammation and that sort of thing comes in. Is that a good analogy?
I think so.
Okay, so in my perspective, when I hashtag Youtrition, there's two main steps to it. There are rules. It is a personalized thing, very, very, very personalized, but there are two main ways to kind of figure it out for yourself. And there's one thing that kind of covers everybody, regardless of race, gender, ancestral history, where you live in the country. It doesn't really matter. The first step to find your perfect Youtrition is to get rid of the garbage.
Yep. I would agree with that.
So I'll let you share. What are some things on your list of garbage?
I think, if you go back to what Gavin conveniently said, eating in Technicolor, what he meant by that was, natural things. If it's, sometimes people get hung up on the gluten-free thing. They're like, I think I can never give up bread. But when you look at processed food in general, it's all got chemicals and the like in it. So if you can prioritize, or
you're saying bread is processed food, is what you're saying?
Yes. If you can completely eliminate something that's been made in a factory, and that doesn't mean that a factory put spinach leaves in a box. That's not processed. That's actually, they're using healthy things. But so taking things like cookies out. And I think the part of the problem, I was actually talking about this. When I was growing up, my grandmother, I'd go over to her house and she had Pringles, and she would let me have three Pringles. And, so, we'd all be like, 3 Pringles. But nowadays, who eats just 3 Pringles if they get a tube of Pringles?
It's totally a can.
Next thing you know,
But there's a reason for that. Why is that?
Do you know? Good.
No. Do you know why? So there are actually...
It fits your hand.
There's a lot of reasons.
No.
But
you should tell us.
I will. Okay.
Yeah.
So, but one of them is that certain foods, processed foods, in particularly wheat, has been so hybridized. There are actually opiates in some of the proteins that react in your brain and cause you to be more addicted, and actually stimulate craving for that same food, as well as stimulating your appetite. So where, a little handful of nuts may satisfy you, and you're like, I'm not going to go back for more. You start eating the Pringles, and it stimulates your appetite, so you're a little bit more hungry, or you think you're a little more hungry. It stimulates your cravings, so you want more of that specific food, and then it acts as an opiate in your brain, so that you're actually a little more addicted to it. So that's why you go to the Bravo or Italian restaurant or whatever, you're not going to eat one breadstick. You're going to eat the bread of, the whole basket of bread. Right? And same thing with the Pringles. You're not going to eat 3 Pringles unless your grandmother is there and you're going to get punished. She takes it away. So that's why, so a lot of times when I work with people, it's like, hey, one thing for you to know is it's not, necessarily your lack of self-control or your lack of willpower. It's not you. The foods actually act against you in your body and in your brain. So it's not, you should feel a little bit better about that. I don't know what he's referring to there. We just got a comment, sunshine meaning scotch, and beat navy. Beat navy, I'm not sure what the first part was. Okay, so, but it is lovely sunshine, isn't it? Okay. So finding your perfect Youtrition definitely starts with step 1, and that covers everybody. Now, for some people, if you're a pretty healthy person, then some people may stop at...
Pat, it's always your fault.
I don't, just...
Oh, sorry.
I'm losing my train of thought completely here. This is... Wilson. Okay, so this is at the point where if we ever launch this as a recorded podcast in January, we have to include the video because otherwise people are going to totally not know what's happening. So anyway, so the first step in the Youtrition is definitely to get the garbage out. So basically what I would consider garbage, like he said, is processed foods, and it can be very overwhelming. I understand that. We did it, and like I said earlier, we were not 100%, the first day. We're still not. We're still learning. We're still kind of figuring it out, but we're constantly, as we learn, implementing things. So it's been a process over about 5 years. So don't feel like you have to wake up one day and be like, perfect. It's just literally impossible to do that. It doesn't matter how crunchy, how cold turkey you are. It's not possible. What? Did you like my words, cold turkey and crunchy?
I did. Yeah.
So a couple of things I would say to focus on. Normally what I try to get people to do first is go gluten-free. It seems very overwhelming, but it is a very hybridized food. So if you look at the history of wheat and how it's been modified, it actually literally doesn't even look like the same plant. Like, it's visibly different. And if you look at the protein structure of it, it has been changed over the past 50, 60, 70 years. So it is very important because, our bodies haven't been modified in that time, so we can't digest it the same. And it has been shown to cause breakdown and inflammation, regardless of how well you heal from that and respond to that, because some people may be like very healthy, non-stressed, able to handle life well, everything's going just great in their lives, and so they have some bread. It causes the same damage and inflammation, but maybe their body heals very quickly from it, versus somebody that maybe has some chronic stress, they're very busy, they're not optimizing their sleep, they have that, and it causes this, what we call metabolic chaos, and it kind of goes into other areas, and that's where you get chronic inflammation and disease and breakdown of these different systems in your body. So that's a big one that I really try to talk to people. And I know I generally say start there. And I don't really give them too much more to go on up front because it is overwhelming. I remember when I started, I was literally like, well, what can I eat? I mean, that's how much bread I was eating. And now it's almost hard for me to think about what things have wheat in it when I'm talking to my clients because it's so out of my life. But but that's normally the number one thing. Would that probably be the number one thing that you'd say to start with?
Yeah, because I think, and there's all little things that'll help you, like when you go to the grocery store. Oh, by the way, hi, Hank. When you go to the grocery store, like focus on the aisles that are on the outside. All
shop the perimeter.
Yeah, shop the perimeter. The stuff that's in the middle is all your processed stuff. So that's kind of a guide, meat, dairy, vegetables. So that helps when you start to, because gluten-free is one of those things that I always laugh, like you'll see like a box of nuts and it'll say gluten-free. It's like they're just, of course it's gluten-free. It's not even bread, it's nuts. So it's like their companies are capitalizing on that term. But it's
the other thing to be aware though with people becoming more aware of gluten-free is, and this is usually something I talk about later with my clients. It's not the first step because the first step of just going gluten-free is very overwhelming. But eventually what you want to do is you don't want to be buying all the gluten-free processed foods either. Like, that's not the point. The point is not to go from regular Oreos to gluten-free Oreos, which is what we did first. But then we kind of progressed, like I said, and we learned more. So then you get rid of them all together and you make foods at home with different ingredients. But that's generally where you start. You try to eliminate as many processed foods as you're aware of in your diet. Specifically make an effort to go gluten-free and get that out of your system. And then from there you can progress. But step one is to get rid of the junk. And that, like I said, for some people that are very, very healthy, being gluten-free has been one of the best decisions I've ever made. Good, Holly. I'm glad you've seen good results from it. Literally every single person that has ever done it that I have been in communication with has seen some sort of positive result. Now, whether they've stayed on it or fallen off the wagon, so to speak, or whatever, every single person I have ever worked with or known in my family or friends that has tried it has seen positive results in one way or another. So that's another thing, is that it affects everybody differently, but that's a whole other podcast. So yes, gluten-free, and most people will, in that first step of eliminating junk, a lot of people that don't have chronic health conditions, that are generally healthy people as it is, they will, that might be the only step for them. Mm-hmm. And then they can kind of balance their life and kind of, you know, do the 80-20 or 90-10 or however they want to view it or whatever, and that might be the only step for you. But for a lot of other people, particularly the people that I work with as an FDN, have chronic health conditions, and this second part is super, super key. So if you have gut disorders of any kind, imbalances, you have chronic fatigue, you think you might have some hormonal imbalances, you have some food sensitivities, anything like that, you're going to want to move on to step 2. And step 2 is where you really personalize it for your body. And the key here that is really important for most people to understand is that not every healthy food is healthy for you. So that was something that kind of is mind-blowing if you're like me and you think about it, and you're like, well, blueberries are like packed with so many nutrients and antioxidants and all these amazing things. So they're not good for me.
So you basically subsist on like 3 foods.
That's not true. That is not true. We eat very well. Otherwise, I'd be much thinner. But I like the good food that I eat. Anyway, so this step involves a little more work on your part. So if you're really working on getting, really dialing in on the perfect #Youtrition for your body, and you really are working on maybe some chronic diseases, this is where you really have to take time. And by the way, it will take time. So if you have any sort of gut issues, your gut can take anywhere from 6 months to 18 months, or sometimes even longer to heal. It depends on kind of where you're at. So it is a process. And you know, I've improved tremendously, and I've seen all these benefits from incorporating these things in my life, but I'm constantly like tweaking, and I'm constantly finding, okay, hey, this food maybe isn't right for me right now. The other part of that is right now. So with gut issues, sometimes there's other factors that come into play, like stress, like optimizing your sleep, like maybe you have a bacterial imbalance or a parasite or something that's like really affecting what's going on in there and kind of causing a perfect environment for food sensitivities. So if those things are going on, then when you get those out, you get those stressors out, you start healing your body, your food sensitivities list may completely change and, you know, shorten. Okay, so there's kind of this, you have to have an open mind about it. You have to be willing to experiment. Maybe if you're going to get testing, that sort of thing, retest. But really how I would suggest, excuse me. Oh, hold on. So do you ever eat pizza, burgers, fries, chicken, or have you all delicious food? No, it's gone. It's totally gone. So,
we eat burgers.
Well, without
the bun.
Okay, yeah. So there's always all these ways that you can have these foods. So burgers without the bun. Pizza, if you really, really want pizza, 9 out of 10 pizza chains now are doing gluten-free crust, and it actually tastes really, really good. In fact, sometimes it's almost better. It depends on the chain. But yeah, we don't miss it. And the thing about it is when you're in the position right now where you're eating all those foods, you crave all those foods, because what I was talking about earlier, how it affects your brain and stimulates your appetite and your cravings and that sort of thing. So, hope I just changed it. So when you're in that position, it's very hard to think about giving those things up. But when you're on kind of this side of it and you've done it for a while, you don't even have those cravings. You can smell the food, you can be around the food, and it like does not even bother you. And you can't picture that now.
Like you used to at work, they would bring in like donuts, or like you'd walk into an Einstein Bagels when we first started.
Einstein Bagels, yeah.
Einstein Brothers Bagels, whatever.
Yeah, whatever it is.
But now it doesn't even affect me. So I can make you feel like you were quote unquote missing out. But then it's such a.
What did we have for breakfast this morning? I got to fix it here. Go ahead. What did we have for
questions?
Yeah, what do we have for breakfast this morning?
Gluten-free pancakes.
Paleo pancakes.
Paleo pancakes and eggs.
There's a difference, but we can get into that later.
Yeah. So anyway, that so I don't have any of those cravings anymore.
And actually, your sugar cravings will go down too. You crave gluten-free pizza after a while.
Yeah, actually, I'd agree with that. I mean, if you found a good gluten-free pizza that you enjoy.
Yeah, because I mean, look, you grew up a certain way. So sometimes you want certain foods, and that just is more of a mental thing than necessarily a cravings thing. You know, like if you're in a certain situation and you're used to eating a certain food, sometimes you want that comfort, and that's okay. And there's ways to do that without compromising your health. So, what were we talking about? We were talking about step 2. Oh,
Renee, what were we talking about, Renee?
Yeah, right. Okay, so we were talking about step 2, and that's how to personalize your Youtrition once you've gotten the junk completely out. So there's a couple ways to do that. One is going to really be a little bit more effort on your part. So that's going to be like food journaling and keeping track of what you do. So maybe an elimination diet, and then you singularly bring foods in one at a time to see how they affect you. But the way I did it was I got an MRT Leap food sensitivities test, and it gives you a list. What it does is it looks at your blood reaction. It exposes your blood to the food, and if your body has marked it as a intruder or a toxin or a food sensitivity, your blood has a specific reaction to that food, or releases the antigens. So this test monitors how your blood reacts to it. Now, one thing I like about it is, so if you wanted to get like a celiac test as an example, if you think you're gluten sensitive, the last thing you want to do is eat it for 2 weeks straight to get a positive result on a celiac test, which is what you have to do. You have to have it in your system for that test to be accurate, which is totally crazy. Like, nobody wants to be doing that. So the blood test, one thing I like about it is you don't have to have the food in your system. I hadn't had wheat, gluten, whatever for about 5 years. I took the test. That came back red on my food sensitivities test. So it's still able to tell me that that food was not good for my body. So if you get some sort of testing, at least it gives you like a foundation to go from. Now, it's not 100%. I still haven't found any sort of testing that is like, every single food that you're ever going to eat. Of course, that would be very difficult to do, to find. But what it does is it gives you a great foundation of where to start. And then as you are your own health advocate and you try new things and you bring foods in, you can identify. So for example, with me, yellow squash was on the list. Now that doesn't cover all the different varieties of squash. So as we've kind of gone through this process, I realized that pumpkin was on the list, butternut squash was on the list, and so then I was kind of able to formulate, okay, well, this is like grouping of winter squash. Winter squash seems to be more of an issue. And again, this may be, for now and not later. But what taking the test and eliminating the food sensitivities does is that at least makes me more able to identify foods as they come in a little more easily. Because think about, my body's not burdened with 20 things anymore because I've taken them all out, or whatever the number is. And then so when I do accidentally bring something in or I try something new, then it's way easier for me to monitor my reaction and realize that that food is the culprit. Does that make sense?
It does.
Okay. So the step 1 really is to get the junk out. The step 2 is really to dig a little deeper, and that you can either do that on your own with an elimination diet like Whole30, keeping track of what you eat, your symptoms. Things you're going to want to look for are bloating, gas, fatigue, acne, things like that. And then you can, and keep in mind too, it can be within a period of like maybe one day to even 3 days. So food sensitivities are food allergies. But we always think about food allergies being like, I have to have an EpiPen and I'm going to break out in hives and I can't breathe. Food sensitivities are mild allergies. So they can show up anywhere from a couple hours after you've eaten something to 3 days after you've eaten something. So keeping track and really being, careful about what you're eating and paying attention to your symptoms is really important. I heard one person actually monitoring specific gluten sensitivity. They realized if they ate wheat or bread or whatever it was on Saturday, they would have an energy dip on like Tuesday or Monday, like 3 days later. So it affected them after that 72-hour period. So yeah, do you have anything to add about #Youtrition?
I think the biggest hurdle that everybody's going to go through is the processed foods. Once you get through that, then I think this other stuff is easy because it becomes fascinating.
It is
You're
fascinating.
kind of like, wow, this is really cool. but it's there's so much emotion, and people will say, and people have said this to me, like I'll have a I don't know, I won't eat a donut, and people are like, well, I'm just gonna, you may live longer, but I'm gonna have more fun. So there's so much.
Say, if you want to, die at 70, that's fine.
Yeah, it's like stigmatism with like moving away from that food, and so, but just give that, really kind of buckle down. If you got to do it, if you can do it cold turkey, good for you. If you have to say, well, I'm no longer gonna have bread when we go out or something like that, little incremental steps that'll get you there. The only thing I'll tell you on that is like, if you try to do 60-40 or 80-20, that's very hard because you can't measure it.
And it also has to do with the cravings too.
Yeah,
it's very difficult. I mean, like a heroin addict can't do 80-20.
Right.
And people don't understand that sugar and bread are the same things. They react the same in your body and cause that addiction and that craving, and they mess with your brain. So I'm not really a fan of the whole 80-20 thing, but some people can handle it.
Right, right. I think the point is, if you shoot for 100% and you fall down, then you're at 95. But if you shoot for 80% and you fall down, you're at 60.
Right.
So it's always kind of like, hey, try to shoot for that 100%. But I think once you get through that processed food thing, and then people stop making fun of you, and they realize that you're really healthy, and then you start feeling better, and it just kind of.
Well, people can never argue with your personal testimonial.
Yeah.
Like, they can't argue with the fact that you feel better on this. So, hey, Aunt Sue, no, I can't eat your upside down pineapple cake.
I think some people will argue with you regardless.
Well, they might, but they can't argue with your experience. So you can say, hey, I'm really sorry, I'm not going to eat this. It hurts my stomach. So I'm not trying to offend you. I appreciate the thought,
right.
But the other thing, and it came up when you were talking, is future mentality. So we are so focused in the moment, and we think, this burger's not going to kill me today, or I'm not going to get a disease or heart, today. But you have to think about, my goal is to live the last 30 years of my life. It's not to be dying the last 30 years of my life. And that's what you see so many people do. From like 70 into their 80s and their 90s, they're just dying. I want to live until I go to sleep one day and I die. And I want to do it in a healthy way just because I'm old and God says it's my time. But what happens is we just think that we hit a certain point after retirement or whatever, and it's all downhill. And we're just so used to this being normal. It's not normal, that people get Alzheimer's and dementia and all these kinds of things. Those are all things that can be reversed, prevented, helped, assisted through nutrition. And that starts 40, 50 years ahead of time. Now. It doesn't start when you're in your 70s and 80s. It starts now. So throughout your entire life is preparing to be mentally clear and healthy when you're 70, 80, and 90 years old. So that's always been my motivation. People are like, well, how do you do it? And how are you so cold turkey and all this kind of stuff and so into it? I'm thinking about when I'm old. And brain health has always been a huge thing, motivator for me, because I watched my grandmother have dementia at the end of her life, and that is no way to live as you're going out. I mean, it's very, very sad. And my heart breaks when people talk about their family members, their moms, their wives, whoever, their grandmothers going through, memory loss and all this stuff as they age. And there's so much, and I'm not saying we're God, and I'm not saying that that's not, going to happen to some people, but there is so much, such a high percentage of it that can be prevented and or assisted and or in certain situations reversed from what you eat. And that's just like, it blows my mind. So that's why I'm passionate about it.
I actually heard a nutritionist talk, and this made a lot of sense to me, that we all are exposed to things. We all have, cancer or sickness in our bodies. And if we fill it with bad stuff, then the body has to prioritize breaking down the bad stuff, and then it takes its energy away from fighting off some of the hazards that are just naturally there.
You have like an energy tank, or like, so to speak, in your body. And when all of its energy is focused over here because you're eating bad nutrition, it takes energy away from fighting cancer or, that sort of thing. So when you, just as an example, when your body thinks that it is in a stress state, the first two things usually that go are what are considered non-important because they don't sustain your life. And that is your digestion and your fertility ability. So your hormones and your gut. And that's where we see a lot of imbalances in women, is in their hormones and their gut. So, but that's your body's way of protecting itself. So if you're under chronic stress, whether that be from the food you eat, emotions, mental, physical stress, whatever that is, work, whatever, if you're under that, your body's trying to protect you, and it shuts down these other systems that aren't going to really affect your living, but it does affect the quality of your life. But your body is more focused on saving your life, if that makes sense.
We should answer that question.
So is Keegan also benefiting from this new normal, or is he still eating like an American Jap, or should I say, has his diet changed completely? Yeah, he's changed completely. So if I had my way, it'd be 100% of the time. But since he is 13 and has friends and goes to birthday parties, and we don't, want to ruin his life, we do.
More than we already have.
Right. We do occasionally let him, if he goes to a birthday party, he can eat some cake or whatever. But here's the thing. It has affected him. And the more he gets older and the more we kind of observe and the more I learn, the more important I think it is for him to be more strict. But we're getting to that age where it has to be his decision. So everything in this house, by the way, I don't make anything different for Patrick and Keegan. We all eat the same food. There is no, I'm the healthy person and they do what they want. That's not, I buy the food, I make the food. Well, sometimes he does too, but.
What our parents say to me when I was a kid, this is not a restaurant, so it's like, whatever.
Or in my house, you either eat it or you get spanked and eat it. That's how I grew up. So there is he's a picky kid. He gets to eat whatever he wants. But no, he has also seen benefits. And the biggest thing for him, it's like brain and mood stuff. So we noticed within about 2 weeks of having him go gluten-free.
Sorry. Shut up, Siri.
Siri has some questions about nutrition.
I can't stop her.
So within about 2 weeks of going gluten-free, and this was when he was, 7.5? Mm-hmm. Mood differences. So he's more patient and more able to handle life, really, and just situations in general, and be more respectful. So mood and brain stuff for him, for sure. And, of course, as he's getting older and there's like some hormonal stuff going on, we want to make sure that we're assisting his body to go through this process in as balanced a way as is physically possible. And nutrition has a lot to do with that. So did you have anything else to add about that, like with kids? Or
no, I mean, you have to, there was one instance where he went over for a sleepover or whatever, and then we found out he didn't eat at all, and so I had to be like...
I don't remember that.
Yeah.
He is never that strict.
But,
he may have said that.
Well, the guidelines are, hey, if you're hungry, eat. If you're at a house, be respectful.
Right.
You know what I mean? But it's
because he's not gonna keel over. But the thing about it is, for a long time, and hair's crazy. But the thing about it is, we would actually be able to kind of identify in some instances when he's cheated. That's the kind of effect that it has on kids. It is. I mean, we think, kids are healthy; they're garbage pits. Their body can handle it. But if you go back to the building blocks analogy, we are giving them foam to work with in the most important critical stages of their life, where they are building their hormones, they're building their brains, everything is changing, their brain is still developing until it's about 25. And so why,
in my case, 45.
45. So why, no, wait, when did we meet? 40. It developed at 40, because then, okay. So, but it's the most critical phase, right? As they're growing through infancy and childhood, and their teenage years are so tumultuous anyways, just because of the hormones. So it's super, super important that we support that nutritionally as much as we can. And it does affect him, and we can normally see. And there was a period of time where he had a lot of junk food, and he kind of cheated of his own will and volition, sort of. And he gained a lot of weight. So, and by the way, we don't calorie count or portion control or restrict the amount of food he eats ever. He can eat whatever he wants, whenever he wants.
As long as it's healthy.
Anything that's in the house is healthy. So he can eat whatever he wants pretty much, unless I'm saving it for dinner. And so we don't do any of that kind of restrictive mentality with him, just on making sure the quality of his food is good. Yeah. Yep, exactly. And then eating healthy will be natural to them as they grow up, and hopefully as he goes off on his own, I hope that he's able to then do what I was talking about earlier and identify his own personal reactions as he experiments with these things, and then make his own choice as an adult to be healthy. So, I mean, that's the best we can do. And he's kind of getting into that age where it's like more of his decision.
Yeah, I mean,
when
because
he's away from us.
if you restrict him too much, then they'll go off to college and he'll fill his room full of goldfish and soda. And so that's, you know, that and I'm sure that'll happen to a degree anyway, but it's about, you know, education. And he recognizes when he doesn't feel well if he's
it makes a difference.
junk. He actually will say that, man, I don't feel good. You know,
Yeah. So, yes, the long answer to that question is yes, it does affect him, and yes, he eats healthy. Have anything else? That's how you do it. So eliminate the junk, and then personalize it for your own individual body. And there's several different ways to do that. By the way, if you do want to get testing, message me, because that is what I do, and I work with people to do functional lab testing to personalize for your body the right protocol, the right food, the right supplementation to get you on track. So I'm always available for that. Does Siri have any other questions?
No questions from Siri.
All right.
And I need more coffee.
Okay. All right, me too. So thanks for joining us, guys. We really appreciate it. If you have any other questions or you're watching this on replay, like the video, comment below, ask questions. I will check and answer them for you. So talk to you soon. Bye.